Welcome to the SyrupCast, MobileSyrup's Canadian tech-focused podcast. This week, we're talking about Valve's Steam Deck because Patrick O'Rourke, I've got the Steam Deck. It's in my hand. I was lucky enough to get it early. You can see that reflection of my ring light in the screen because I didn't turn it on. I'm now turning it on. It's booting up. Look, it's Horizon Zero Dawn. We're going to talk about this.
His hand.
Yeah, it's in the palm of my hand. I've been playing around with it for the past week. And the show is pretty much going to be like the Brad Bennett show, asking me questions about this. So with that, I'm gonna hand it over to the bad boy of tech. He's gonna grill me about the Steam Deck for this emergency SyrupCast episode.
Hey everyone, yeah, emergency SyrupCast. I don't know, it's a crazy piece of gadget. I feel like it's gonna be a piece of gadget history. Like we're gonna look back at this either as a pivotal moment or as one of those like weird tech gadget gaming things that failed. But I hope it's the former. So let's get into the questions. So, from my understanding, it's just a customizable pad of buttons for Twitch streamers and such.
Yeah. It's the Stream Deck. Yeah. Wouldn't that be funny if someone released an app for it and you put it on a stand and you just use the touchscreen to press different buttons? That's gonna happen.
That actually
would
be sick. Yeah, get a Stream Deck app on the Steam Deck. Stream Deck. Honestly, Elgato should just make that themselves. That's a huge thing. Yeah, that's like a marketing thing for them because that's right in their market. But no, moving on. The thing that I really want to know, and I know it's been covered in a lot of reviews, but I just want to hear your impressions because I know you've used the Switch Lite, and the Switch OLED. But where does the Steam Deck, the Valve Steam Deck, fit in screen wise with those guys?
So it's got pretty big bezels. Size wise, I can even hold them up. Like this isn't planned. I'm just gonna do it. I got them right here within arm's reach. You can see the kind of screen size difference a little bit. I'll make sure they're both on actually. For people listening on audio,
similar to me.
It is similar size. It's not that big of a difference. You can kind of see it.
Is the Switch a larger screen actually? The new Switch?
It's wider. I don't actually know the direct screen dimensions. This is the OLED model, to be clear.
Yeah,
too. It has the minimized bezels. The screen is, I believe, half an inch bigger. The bezels on the Steam Deck's display are pretty substantial. They remind me of the old Switch. It's a nice screen.
Actually, just when we talk about the bezels, if you're curious to see a life-size recreation, the Digital Foundry video on the Steam Deck has a fake Steam Deck built around the screen that's showing the games, and it's a pretty great view of being able to see what it would feel like in your hands. I think, at least. I'm sure it fades away more than that once you play it, but yeah,
it does. Yeah, they're both 7 inches, so it's the same size. Like the Switch OLED model, 7 inches. And then the Steam Deck itself is also 7 inches. It's just I believe slightly different pixel sizes.
Ratios?
But they're 7 inches.
Cool. So I guess maybe this won't work super well because Zencaster's being a little grainy for me right now. But I was gonna ask if you could just boot it up and give us a little ASMR of the boot up sound. Is there a cool one? I know
yeah, I could do that.
Is it cool? Just yeah.
It is pretty cool.
I'm thinking of famous boot up sounds in my head. For me, we've got PlayStation's original sound. Oh, is it coming?
It's coming. Ready? Just be quiet. You gotta listen. ASMR. I'm gonna make sure the volume's way up. I don't know if that actually changes.
We might have missed it. Was that it?
I'll do it one more time.
That was nice. Okay, that's giving me vintage Tamagotchi vibes. Does it sound chiptune in real life, or is that just the distortion?
It sounds kind of actually, when I think about it, it's like the old school. And this is probably dating myself again. You may have never used it, but MSN Messenger, when someone sends you a message, that's what the noise sounds like.
A couple of months on MSN Messenger.
Did you actually? Yeah.
Yeah, it was the first tech thing I ever got, and my parents didn't let me get it for a really long time, and all my friends had it for much longer. I finally got it. And I remember 2 days into having it, I was just have a friend come over, and my mom was like, "Oh, we gotta call them and make all the plans." And I was like, "Oh, I just we were talking, and he said his mom's gonna drop him off at 2 or whatever." She's like, "Wow, that was really easy. I guess I should have let you have MSN Messenger a long time ago."
My entire high school, middle school was all MSN, and then Facebook Messenger came and killed all that. But yeah, that's to me, that's what the noise sounds like. It reminds me of the MSN Messenger noise.
It's kind of cool. How do you feel about the interface at all? Overall, does it feel nice, clean,
the UI,
lots of cool little sounds? Yeah, just the booting it up, picking a game, hitting the home button menu equivalent, whatever that might be.
Yeah, I mean, on one hand, it's pretty smooth. There's some cool stuff in there. Like there's a menu where you can bring up like very quick settings in terms of the performance of the device, like limiting the frame rate to 30 frames per second, so that it's not like going up to 60 and 40 and stuff like that, because
Save
it
a little
can't really,
battery.
yeah, it can't really handle that. That saves you battery life. The menu itself, like Steam, is pretty easy to navigate. There's a whole section in the store with Steam Deck verified games that have been verified by Valve's team to work really good on the device. And
I
then
heard that
on the
part was
other,
apparently added really late in the game. I
yeah, it
was listening
was,
to the
yeah.
Linus Tech Tip podcast, and they were saying it was like super, like almost the day before the review embargo dropped or something.
Yeah, so to be clear, like I got this the day the embargo lifted. There's other
Yeah.
people that got it earlier, so they were working with Valve on reviews and updates and all kinds of stuff like for a month. I've only had this for a week. I was, I guess, in the second wave of people that got their hands on it a little bit early. But yeah, like the menu is pretty good. I mean, I would expect it to be like Valve makes Steam, right? Like Steam is,
To me, Steam is looking a little outdated. I haven't seen Steam change its design in 10 years. It's changed a
that's
little bit,
fair.
but very
That's
slightly.
fair. But it works, right? Like it's
It does,
relatively
and
easy to
it's very
navigate.
clean. It's
And
makes
that's what
sense.
I see
And
with this, right?
gamers would likely be livid if it updated with like a more modern design that looks
Yeah.
something more like GOG or Epic Games, I think. But yeah, it's not. I wouldn't call it necessarily modern. Although from the videos I've seen, I think the Steam Deck does actually further that a little bit. It does look a little more like
Yep.
simplified and modern, I think, or simplified, and that comes across as a little more modern in a way that like
Yeah,
Roku kind of does.
the last thing I'd say on this is just like, so the actual Steam operating system looks good. It's easy to navigate. It makes sense with all the buttons. But as soon as you boot into desktop mode, which is
Mm,
like this Proton Linux based thing that you can install other apps through, it's a mess. It's really
okay.
really hard to use. I pretty much resorted to like, we'll get into it later, I'm sure, but I pretty much resorted to just using like a mouse and keyboard to navigate and do stuff, because like it's just
Just on the
very basic
Proton
things.
side.
Yeah, it's very
Yeah.
basic things that like don't work. Like
Mm,
the on-screen keyboard will not pop up in that mode. Like so you have to plug a keyboard in. It should be popping up. It does sometimes, but like probably 60% of the time it just doesn't appear because it hasn't been optimized yet.
interesting.
Um, and that comes like the side of like, in some ways this feels like, and again we'll get into this later, but it feels like an early access device in some ways.
Yeah, I think that's a sentiment a lot of people seem to be sharing. So I guess just before we get off, before our ASMR listeners drop off, because this is gonna be the last ASMR experience of the show. But can you get the fans going? Is that easy to do? Can you give us a little? Are they
i
loud?
I can.
Just boot up
um
Elden Ring. Will it
yeah,
start? Do
we're gonna have
fans
to
immediate?
talk a little bit as the game boots up,
Okay,
but
I can. Oh, go
you
into the
will hear
next
them.
question. How many D batteries has it got inside of it?
Oh, it's downloading an update right now actually for Elden Ring. So,
Tough.
oh no, it's launching. It's launching. How many D batteries?
Yeah.
D batteries. It's. I wonder how much this would actually take if it was powered by D batteries. Probably like 4 or something like that.
Yeah, like 8. But no, that question is just supposed to mean like how long does it last battery life? Do you find the battery life is good, is bad?
It's awful, but that's the interesting thing with it. Is it like it depends on
Wait,
what you're doing,
awful. Okay, okay.
right? So if I'm playing Elden Ring, for
Yeah.
example, I have it on high graphic settings, which the game runs beautifully now on high graphic settings, following like an update that's coming next week officially, but I'm part of like a beta program and I got it early. It runs great on high graphic settings, looks really good. It gets about an hour and a half to 2 hours of battery life on that. But if you're playing something less resource intensive,
Pretty
it's
good.
going to last longer, right? Like if you're playing,
Mm-hmm.
I don't
Like
know, like
Stardew or
Half-Life
something
2
maybe.
or like an
Even
indie
that.
game,
Yeah, yeah.
it's going to last longer, right? It really depends on what you're doing with it. But in that sense, it like reminds me of the Game Gear, because that was like the thing with the Game Gear, that the battery life didn't last very long. It was like an hour and a half to 2 hours or whatever,
Well, at
despite
least
being
you could be
color. Sorry?
chucking D cells into that guy. Or they're probably
Yeah,
like what,
that's
9
true.
volts? Who knows?
So
You probably know.
it's bad, but it depends on like what you're doing with it, right? Like that's the kind of crux of the situation. It can get up to be like 8 hours, but if you're playing a high end game like Elden Ring, which I think a lot of people would be getting this to do,
Mm-hmm.
you're gonna run into a situation where like it's not gonna last long. Like if I'm playing the Elden Ring at night, like last night's a great example. Jumped on right after work, got on at like 6, pretty much played from 6 until I went to bed at like, I don't know, 11:30 or something like that. I had to charge it. I had to plug it in from, I don't know, maybe like it worked from about 6 to 7:30, 7:45, and then I had to plug it in. So it just it's a portable, but it's also a portable that you're gonna have to charge a lot if you plan to play high-end games on it.
I didn't write this down, so I could be wrong, and I feel super bad. Maybe I'll look it up, but I'm pretty sure it takes 40. It needs 40-watt power delivery to like charge while gaming too. Did I hear that? Is this something that you've heard at all? Like it needs a
I do
higher
not
end
know.
like fast charger to charge while gaming. I know that's something that the Switch also needs, but I guess we can. That might not
I'm
be
not
such like a niche thing.
I'm not sure. Will you check that though? I do have the fans up and running, and we'll see if people can hear them. Elden Ring has been on for approximately 30 seconds, and this is what the fans sound like. Can you hear that at all? There you go. There's 10 second of fan. I don't know. Like that's one of the other things with this that like I guess that's probably one of my biggest issues that I've encountered is just like how loud the fan is. It's understandable because it's such a powerful device, but it's also like
annoying.
Like I'm sitting there in bed playing it beside my partner. It's an amazing experience to be able to play something like Elden Ring in bed. It's like a game that just came out. You're getting like
it's like sex.
PS4 level.
Best thing you could do in a bed, Elden Ring.
Pretty much, to be honest. And then you also get PS4, Xbox One level quality graphics. Like it's amazing. It's truly a technical feat. But yeah. I play it with headphones. I don't even game,
and I want one.
I play it with headphones in because it's so loud, right? Like that's how annoying the fan is, and I'm sure that would drive you crazy as someone who has like a vendetta against fans and loves their devices to be hot.
I hate fans. I'm waiting for the Linus Tech Tips video where they like tear apart the Steam Deck and put a Noctua fan in it. I don't know if it's gonna be them or Gamers Nexus that does it first, but I am like, that has to happen before I even consider buying one. I probably never will because I do like minimal gaming now, so I can get by with like a PC and a phone and a Switch, but I mean, the Steam Deck is cool as hell.
I do have the charger behind me. I could just like roll backwards, grab it, and check.
Well, the charger says it's 65 watts online. Okay. So I guess you need at least 65. Well, 65 watts will charge it when it's gaming, I assume. 45 watts seems reasonable, although it's a 400 kilowatt hour battery. So maybe that's where my mind like cross those wires. So I wouldn't take anything that I said on what you need to charge it with a grain. Take that with a grain of salt, but I think it's something we can look into. It might be an interesting story if we've got a few power banks. I know when the Switch first came out, that was an issue, so perhaps something we could get to the
bottom. I actually covered that quite a bit.
Perfect.
When the Switch first launched, like different ways that you could charge it, like on the go if you're on a plane or whatever, that kind of thing.
I mean, if it's only got like a 90-minute to 1 hour to 2 hour battery life, I think it's something worthwhile for sure.
Just the last thing I'll say about the battery life, like one of the things that I was thinking. Like we're not going into an office right now. When we do, I'm likely going to be driving because I live farther away now. But if I were to be taking the local, like from the suburbs to the city transit in the Greater Toronto area, the GO train into the city, my trip is about an hour. So to give you like perspective on that, the Steam Deck would be almost dead probably if I was playing Elden Ring on that trip. Which I mean, like it's still impressive you can do that, but it's something to consider.
That's great. At least you're not dying on the way there. Remember when I had that scooter? I used to take an electric scooter to and from work, and it would die before I got home. I just walked the last 100 feet.
Those are the days.
The Steam Deck at least might get you home, although you're not riding it. So you said you've only had yours for a week. We'll move back in. We'll move back into the questions now. But you said you've only had yours for a week. Hit me with the top bugs you've gotten so far. You kind of hinted before that you've been feels like you've been beta testing it. What have you been experiencing?
So the first biggest thing was the fact that Elden Ring just didn't run smoothly on it, and it should. Like the Steam Deck's powerful enough to be able to make that happen, and that was just related to like a Proton update. Like the game had to be adapted to run on the Steam Deck, and that's something generally speaking that Valve is going to need to do for every game that gets like Steam Deck verified quote unquote compatibility. I was a little surprised, I guess, about how much work it requires on Valve's side to get those up and running, and how sometimes that's going to require several updates. That's something that I was surprised about. There's also a lot of games that just straight up.
Too.
It's true. There's also a lot of games that just straight up don't work, right? Like, a good example is like you can't you can dual boot Windows on it. I've seen people do it, but there's like no drivers available. That's something else that Valve's working on. So like you can't put Game Pass on it. There's tons of games you can't load on it, like Apex, for example, like just doesn't play. There's a lot of games that have built-in anti-cheat systems that just straight up will not play on it. So I guess for me, I'm surprised with the compatibility side of things. There's like a very short list of games that are truly 100% will work, no questions asked, compatible with the device, and that's going to change. But it's something again to consider if you're like an early adopter. Your favorite game may not run on it.
Yeah, that's tough. I mean, they did get Elden Ring, so I don't know why we're putting so much stake in that, but it's the hot game of the moment. So big ups on them for doing that, I guess. One thing that just sort of came across my head, and this is going to be one of those crazy like Brad Bennett SyrupCast theories that is, I'm just getting too much into the product strategy. But I heard on the Verge cast that one of the biggest there's two major anti-cheat softwares, and one of the biggest ones is made by a company that is owned by Epic Games. And part of the reason why they're not getting those games on Steam Deck is just because Epic Games apparently doesn't want to put the work in to do that. Yeah. And as Epic Games being like at this point with the Epic Games Store and the success of Fortnite, a major competitor to Valve, I don't know if they're at Valve's level, but there's no one really pushing against them in the way that Epic is. Do you think Epic comes out with a console that's similar to this, and you can play?
No, I think like hardware's hard, right? Releasing any kind of hardware is hard. I think Valve has the money to do this from Steam, and I think it's like a cool thing that like Gabe Newell, Valve's president and co-founder, just wanted to do, so he did it because he has so much money. I don't think a hardware play for someone like Epic makes sense, right? Like there's already so many PS4s, so many Xbox Ones, so many PS5s, Series X's, PCs out in the wild, right? Like there's no like they're going to get that game in more people's hands on those devices than selling like their own handheld that's designed for the Epic Game Store, in my opinion.
I guess I think that we know this is a crazy sort of theory that I'm putting out, but I like to think that they're looking beyond Fortnite and towards what's next. I think that's a lot of what this represents as well. But I think before we get into sort of like what the Steam Deck represents, maybe let's like look back. Can you take us through a bit of a history of like Valve's hardware ambitions in the past? What have they done to like lead us here?
Yeah, so I'll preface this with saying like I've always been a console gamer first and foremost. But I've covered the industry for a really long time, so I have a bit of a cursory knowledge of the different things that Valve has done over the years. There was like this initiative to release Steam boxes, which were like self-contained, relatively affordable computers, and it was seen, I guess, by the press at least, and from my perspective, as like a console competitor. And that just sort of died out. That was like an initiative that Valve tried, didn't really take off how they wanted, and it died out. Then there was like Steam Link, and that was like a box that they sold that you hooked up to your TV that you streamed games from your computer to your television via this box, and then you played them on your TV. I had one. I was really hyped for it.
Oh, cool.
It straight up didn't work. I know that some people were able to get it to work. I don't know if it had something to do with my home internet connection, but I am aware that there were other people that ran into a similar issue where it didn't work. That project eventually evolved into, and I'm sure someone in the comments will correct me, but I think it evolved into an app, just like in the same way that like Stadia or Xbox Game Pass, that sort.
It's still both. I believe there's still a hardware component that you can get for your TV, but there still isn't. There's an app on your phone and an iPad as well. I've used it for what was the game I played on it? It was that card game one that I was like hyping up a lot last year.
Yeah, I remember.
Loop Hero. But it was more of a slow-paced game. It worked well. Anything with like really fast motion, I was still having a bit of lag. And my home internet's never been great for game streaming, though. Anyway, sorry to interrupt.
No problem. And then the last one is like the Steam controller, which was this really futuristic design that didn't have joysticks. It was like touch panels. And you can see the DNA of that. It looked comfortable. I never used one. I never had one.
Same.
I think the general like consensus from people was like, this is a cool idea, but it doesn't necessarily. It's like it doesn't improve on the concept of a joystick in a notable way. You know what I mean? Like just use a joystick. You don't need to do this. But that said, that technology is kind of featured in the Steam Deck. There's these two like touch panels under the joysticks that you can use when you boot the Steam Deck in desktop mode, or in some games to usually like move the camera around. And they're kind of like these touch sensitive panels that have haptic feedback within them. Yeah. So to my knowledge, that's kind of like what led up to this portable computer thing that Steam has now released. Sorry, that Valve has now released.
Oh yeah, I always mix that up too. I'm always calling like Valve Steam and Steam Valve. But I think the only thing that we kind of missed, and I'm not sure if it's even directly related, although I think that's a really great like direct history in terms of like Valve's console ambitions. But the thing to point out is like we said, Steam Box never really took off. Steam Controller never really took off. What was the other thing? Steam Link kind of got like transitioned into something else, but never really took off in the way that we're hoping, or Valve is hoping that the Steam Deck will. I think I assume that they're hoping it's going to be like a Nintendo Switch type of console that's making the headlines and all the greatest games are on it. But I think where Valve has found the most success in hardware was actually their VR stuff. And I'm wondering if that totally forgot about that this at all. Yeah, I know it's so different from this. It is much less of a separate thing, but I think that's where they found more hardware success. So I'm wondering if it like gave them the confidence to like push into something so wacky like this, you know, when they tried to compete against the Xbox, they couldn't, but perhaps something a little more niche like this, like VR has a better legs to run.
To be fair, too, like Valve was behind the like actual physical hardware of the HTC Vive, which back in the day when I was really into VR and was kind of like on the cutting edge of that, it was leagues ahead of anything Oculus was doing at the time. Like Oculus got bought by Facebook, now Meta, and they caught up in terms of technology. And HTC has kind of shifted the Vive's brand to be like more business focus, not really consumer tech as much as it used to be. But at the time, like the Vive was crazy. Like I still remember like the first time I tried it, it was like an otherworldly experience, and Valve was behind the hardware side of that device.
Yeah, they still sell a headset, which I don't think their headset is the top of the line one anymore, but their controllers, I believe, the last time I was sort of checking it out, were sort of like the gold standard
Index,
for VR.
Right? That's what it's called, the Valve Index. Yeah, I to my knowledge, it's supposed to be like one of the highest end headsets still. I've never used one. I would love to try one. But I know when it first came out, it had like the highest resolution. I think it didn't even require like base stations. There's a lot of stuff that
none of the newer
other headsets didn't have.
Yeah. But yeah, so I guess that's sort of like the history. Let us hear. Valve has a weirdly troubled past when it comes to making consoles. So I hope that this is the success point for them. I'm skeptical, to be honest. I don't know if I have a lot of friends even that want it, and most of my friends are gamers, you know?
We talked about this a bit before the podcast. Like, I think it depends on what Valve's definition of success is, right? Like,
right. That's a good point.
I've used this thing. It's incredibly cool. It's like a nerd's dream. It's like a PC gamer's dream in a sense. Like just the idea of being able to play something like Elden Ring on your really fancy high-end computer, taking that same save file, going downstairs and like playing it in a different place, taking it with you like on a trip, playing it on a plane. Like that's incredibly cool.
Yeah.
But so does it have the legs to take on, I don't know, like the Switch, right? Some people would argue it 100% does, because it has this access to a massive library of games, right?
More power, way more power too.
And it's more power. But history has shown us that like that doesn't necessarily result in a victory in the handheld space, right? Like you had the Nintendo DS, which went up against the not the Vita. What came before the Vita?
PSP?
The PSP, portable? which went up against the PSP, and like everybody thought the PSP was going to win. The DS was this
weird, those
like
cute little discs.
Yeah, the DS was this weird, wacky device that before the DS Lite came out was incredibly ugly. But the DS smashed it, killed it, done. Same thing with the Vita and the 3DS, like same situation. Way more powerful device. That thing was like basically a slightly less powerful PS3, right? Beautiful hardware. It just didn't take off.
Good. I want to make a video where I'm just like walking around the streets with like a mic and a Nintendo Switch with Witcher 3 on it. I'm like, hey, you want to do the Steam Deck with Elden Ring? Just like try to get people to think that it's
just
the
ask
Steam
people.
Deck with Elden
So
Ring.
I don't know.
You
I
tried the
don't
Steam
think
Deck with Elden
power's
Ring?
I don't think power is the be all end all. I think it ultimately comes down to games. And you could argue that the Steam Deck has like the sickest games ever. But what I found myself doing when I was looking through like the Steam library, like games that I had or games that I was considering buying, a lot of it is stuff that I've already played on other systems, right?
Yeah.
And even like when I first started playing Elden Ring, it was running like absolute crap on the Steam Deck because a bunch of updates came out and it runs way better now. But I was like, man, I wish I just got this on the Series X. And then a lot of the indie games like Stardew Valley, like I could open the store right now and just go through it. A lot of that stuff's already available on the Switch, right? And
Which
the Switch is a cuter
more
device.
Portable,
it's more battery. Portable. It's cheaper at least in Canada. I know it's less powerful, but like I just think there's more to the story. So like it depends on what success is to Valve, really, right? Like so if they want this to be a niche product for like PC gamers that want a portable, it's gonna do really well. If they're trying to take on Nintendo, which I don't think they are because that would be a little crazy, that's just not gonna happen.
Yeah. That's a good point. That's very fair. When I was looking up last night some of the research about the Steam boxes and whatnot, it seemed like one of the big features that limited them was the SteamOS. Like it was still running on Linux back then, but it didn't have as many games. People in old reviews kept pointing out that macOS had more games than SteamOS, even though SteamOS was only 4 games. I'm assuming that's changed now, right? That's what this whole new Proton layer is or whatever. It's like some sort of transcoding thing to allow more games to be playable.
But
do you think that will be the biggest hurdle again?
My understanding is games just need to be optimized for it, right? I don't know what Valve's strategy is in that respect. I know right now it's mostly like people internally at Valve handling that optimization. I think maybe down the line they're hoping that at least major developers and publishers will like optimize games already, so they're just delivered to the store and like on day one it's going to work right away with the Steam Deck. But
Valve has more power than Google, but we've seen that approach fail.
Yeah, so I don't know. There's a surprisingly robust library, but like I said, a lot of those games they're older, right? Like I bought Horizon Zero Dawn last night because I couldn't find another high-end game that I was interested in playing on it because I had already played all these games on other platforms. It was like I was either going to buy Horizon Zero Dawn or God of War just to
we should also mention that both of those games are like 4 years old. So
yeah,
you haven't played them. Most people are probably in that situation where you are, where it's like I've already played it. So
like that's the thing, right? Like I know PC gamers will make this argument that like it's open and it's like it's such a better ecosystem, and sure you're not wrong, but like a lot of these, it doesn't change the fact that a lot of these games you can play on it at least right now.
So was the Ouya,
Yeah,
the Ouya was open.
The Ouya. I have one. I wish I like dug it out of my closet.
What do you mean dug it out of your closet? You don't keep it in like a glass case or a safe or something?
The valuable thing. What was that Ouya game that was like killer?
Towerfall. It's still on Switch. It's better now. There's more maps and stuff. Alex and I bought it the other day. We play sometimes.
I had it on PS4 and I beat the single player campaign with a friend of mine. We like powered through it. It took us like a day. It's a great game. But that like was born on the Ouya.
Ouya. Forever. I was gonna get into like Game Pass coming to Steam Deck, or well, the potential for Game Pass coming to Steam Deck. Valve is saying like maybe, I know we talked about it yesterday. Do you want to get into it? I think actually what we've covered so far with gaming's, there's maybe a little bit more untread ground, so maybe we don't need to get into that. But what if you have anything you want to add, you can maybe throw it in about Game Pass now.
Yeah, well, okay. First, let's hit a quick ad break, and then when we get back, I'll chat about that. That was the game. Sorry. we talked about it, and like I don't know, the Game Pass situation's really weird. Like you have on one hand, the head of Xbox, Phil Spencer, talking about how he wants to get Game Pass on the Steam Deck, and he's like posted pictures of his personal Steam Deck that was sent to him by Valve, and you even had like earlier review units. One of the key games that was shown off on it was like an Xbox Microsoft title, like Forza Horizon 5, which is a great game. And then you have like Gabe Newell, Valve's co-founder and president, talking about how he wants to get Game Pass on Steam. The big question is like, what does Game Pass on Steam look like? Is it a thing that you download through Steam, kind of like EA Play? That's a subscription service that you can get through Steam, where Valve assumably takes like a cut of that subscription cost. Is that something that Microsoft would be interested in doing just to get their service on that platform? I don't know. Or is it something where like
web-based?
Yeah, is it a web-based thing where you're doing it through a browser and it's streaming, or is it lost my train of thought, or is it like Windows? Like, do you install Windows partition on your Steam Deck, which is something you can sort of currently do, but the drivers aren't there. Valve's working on that. Yeah, is that how it's going to work?
It might be easy. I mean, that's easier for Microsoft, although there's potentially room for less optimization for the games on that route. The way that I stand against it, and just what we were talking about yesterday, was like Valve and Microsoft both want Steam Deck on, or want Game Pass on Steam Deck, but for different reasons. Valve wants it on there because it's a hot new gaming thing, and it'll bring lots of games to the Steam Deck, ideally alleviating the problem we talked about that you had, where there wasn't enough games that you want to play on there. Microsoft wants it on Steam Deck because that'll grab some headlines and make some money, whatever. But they don't want to put it on Steam Deck and lose money. Like they don't want Valve to be taking like too big of a cut for the same reason that it might not be on iOS. Well, it's not on iOS because of the App Store's rules of not allowing games to be sold like individually through an app, and that's like a whole different thing. So I guess maybe I shouldn't compare those, but
it is now through browser,
such
right?
a convoluted,
but like
yeah. But yeah, exactly. And because they had to do that workaround, I guess is what prompts me to think that we might see another workaround here instead of an actual like natural implementation through SteamOS.
It's tough. And like, we didn't really get into it that much. Like the desktop side of the Steam Deck is essentially like broken. And I wouldn't like, I know that this is going to come out and there's going to be people that want to tinker with it and like put in Linux commands to install all kinds of crazy software, but like it's hard. It takes a lot of work, and to me that defeats the purpose of a device like the Steam Deck that's supposed to simplify PC gaming and make it accessible and portable. If that's the way that you got to get Game Pass on it, where you have to do like a Windows partition and then like download the file and plug a mouse and keyboard in, it's just, that's a failure to me. That's like almost not having it on it, in a sense. Because like I tried to run emulators on it, and I know that it's early days. I know that like I'm one of the privileged few that has my hands on it, and like super happy Valve sent it to me. Like great, 100% awesome. But like I went into this little like Discover store that Valve has set up on the desktop side, and I downloaded a bunch of different emulators, and I just couldn't, like, it's such a mess. You had to like plug a keyboard in and a mouse, and you had to like open the app in like desktop mode and then create a shortcut for like the regular SteamOS, but then you can't like actually load any ROMs in either version of the operating system yet. I had to like open two windows and like drag and drop them, and it's not accessible. It's like it's not the same as getting an emulator on your phone and like getting some ROMs and going. There's like too many hurdles that you have to go through. So if Game Pass ends up like that, where you have to jump through all these hoops to make it happen, again, like to me that's just another failure.
Yeah, the best bet really, I think, what would please both parties in my mind is like getting Game Pass built within Steam. So like if you pay your Game Pass subscription, you can log into Steam with your Xbox account, and thus will unlock the games that are supposed to be in Game Pass through like whatever's on Steam or whatever. But then like Valve, it's just about how much Valve takes as a cut. Like if it's like 30%, Microsoft probably isn't doing it. If it's 12%, maybe they'll do it, But yeah, should we move on, I guess?
Yeah, go for it.
So you have the middle tier of the pricing models, right? Or did you have the top end one?
No, I have the middle one. So it's 256 storage, I think.
Yeah, and it's like $650.
I'm gonna look up the prices just on the Steam Deck website because it's like a click away.
Just as you're doing that, do you feel like it's like living up to that price? Like, does the hardware feel nice? Does it feel well built, well put together? It's like feeling like a more premium product, or is it feeling a little jank, little like beta testy like the software might be?
So this, it's tough. It's like,
for the viewers that are just, or for the listeners, Pat looked around like, how am I going to answer this? So
it's tough because I really like it, right? Like I
Yeah.
think it's cool. I think the hardware feels relatively on par for the most part.
Some real
with
gadget love for it.
with the Switch. It's like it's such a cool gadget. Like there's times where I'm just like marveling at the fact that I'm playing a new game with Xbox One, PS4 level graphics essentially on a portable device. Like that is an amazing thing. Like if I went in a time machine and showed a 12-year-old version of myself that has only seen a Game Boy Advanced, like my brain would just explode. Um I think that probably the high end one isn't worth the cost, at least not right now. It might be down the line. The one that's like 819 Canadian that has the 512 NVMe SSD. The 659 one, I think that's the only logical one that you can really get. Like the 64 gig one, you're going to fill that with one game or more, right? Like I think Elden Ring was bigger than 64 gigs.
Yeah, Call of Duty is. I don't know if Call of Duty is
like there's a bunch of
but
games.
yeah.
So it doesn't really make that much sense to get that one in particular. But yeah, it's a lot of money to ask for something. But if you don't, and it's tough because like if you don't have a gaming PC, but you're interested in PC gaming and there's games that you want to play that aren't available on other platforms and you don't have a Switch and you don't have all these other devices that I have the privilege to already own, you'll probably get more out of it than I would. I would argue that the highest end
one. That's a
one
good point.
Isn't worth it, right? Like it has this anti-glare etched glass and like a bigger hard drive, but like I think most people would be happy with the mid-range one. That said, the screen is really glossy. Like if you have a light on over it and it's dark, like it's really hard to see.
Cool, that's good to know. Is it heavy? You can curl it. How many
it's
curls could you do of it?
It is so heavy. Like I can't. Like I don't know. I'll hold it up now. Like if you're playing like this, lying in bed with it over your head, your hands will get tired. Like the way that I play it is I like rest it on my lap or I rest it on a table. On the weekend, like I went on a pretty lengthy 6-hour Elden Ring tip, and like my hands were hurting after because I was playing it in bed with it like being held over my head, and it's like carrying, I don't know, like a couple. How heavy is it? Like I don't think I've looked it up.
I don't know. Me either.
I'm gonna Google it. How heavy is the Steam Deck?
Do you think it's more than a pound? 2 pounds?
How much? 1.47 pounds. So it's a hefty boy. Like even like it's like I'm holding the Switch in one hand, I'm holding the Steam Deck in the other hand.
And I thought that was a skateboard.
Skateboard. I can feel the weight difference.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely bigger. One of the things that kind of was shaking me a little bit, I'm sure it's fine. I haven't been paying too much to like the exact specs of the chip, but it's only a 4-core CPU, which I thought was a little limiting. I know when I built my PC, everybody keeps talking about, like in the building PC forums and all everything, everyone keeps talking about moving up to like 6-core chips being like the new sort of like budget king chip to get. And I just worry that like, will that mean the Steam Deck gets outdated very quickly? You know, if the world is moving towards like 6 and 8-core chips, like I mean, I bought an 8-core chip because I wanted it for work purpose, like for video editing, and Photoshop, and all that stuff. But for gaming, everyone's pushing towards these like Ryzen 5s with like 6 cores. So I'm wondering if like the lack of cores to utilize will handicap the Switch, or not the Switch, the Steam Deck. In a year or 2 years after, once now that the new consoles are out, right? They're kind of like the minimum spec that people has to hit. Although I think it's going to take a while for the PC market to get away from like the 10 series graphics cards, especially with like how that market's been over the last 2 years. But maybe not. Either way, I just the power of it shook me a little. But I guess if it's playing Elden Ring now, fine. Maybe I shouldn't worry.
You would know more than me, right? Like I'm not really a hardware or spec guy. I know that like I guess like you said, like the fact that it's capable of playing Elden Ring at a solid 30 frames per second now is pretty impressive. That's a brand new game. Like I know that it's not probably a visual masterpiece. Like I think Dean said that in his review. Like there's other From Software games that look better. Part of that's because it's multi-platform. It's just on everything, right? It's not just developed directly for the PS5 right. Like Demon's Souls was. Multi-platform games just never look as good because teams are spread thinner. They're trying to optimize for everything. That said, like I think because PC gaming is so adjustable, like you can turn down the graphics and games will run on older machines. I think that this has like a little bit more life than maybe something than maybe it might initially seem, at least. But you're likely not wrong. Like, I'm sure Valve probably has a successor to this already in the works with like a faster chip with more cores. I wouldn't be surprised at all.
You think it called the Steam Deck 2, or is it like the Steam Porch, Steam Veranda, Steam Dock? No, they already have a Steam Dock.
I wonder what they're gonna do actually with the branding. I don't know. I don't. Maybe they'll be like Apple and they'll just release a new one with the same name, with like the way that Apple handles iPads. And I don't know.
Yeah. I'm assuming you haven't played around with it too much, but have you checked out any of the FSR, like that sort of upscaling toggle that's in there?
I haven't. That's something that I want to test out.
I think you'll get really into it when you start playing around with it.
Go ahead. I was just gonna say I got to get into more of the technical stuff. I haven't really messed with it beyond the like frame limiting. Like that was something I did with Elden Ring, and I played like Horizon like a very small amount. It just like that's something that I have to mess around with a bit more beyond the just the frame rate limiter.
Just to explain it for the viewers, if you've been gaming on PC, you've likely heard of NVIDIA DLSS, I believe, or DLSS. Did I say that's the same both times? Anyway,
I think it's DLSS.
It's basically an upscaling program that will like take a game and the game will run using its settings, and then DLSS can be applied on top of that to like lower the settings, but then crisp it back up through AI essentially to make the game run better. So you're essentially running a 1080p game on like medium, or 1080p game on high settings, but it's looking like 4K on high through DLSS. DLSS was a huge deal over the last few years because of we were reaching the end of sort of the console cycle, and gaming PCs and everything were getting a lot better, and this was a way to like kind of raise all boats. So by proxy, NVIDIA's like biggest competitor, AMD, also put out a form of this like AI enhancing software, although I don't know if it uses AI. It just does upscaling through a different form,
FSR,
I believe.
Right? That's what it's called?
Yeah, but it's called FSR. It's like full scale resolution or fidelity super resolution. No, it's fidelity super resolution. But the interesting thing about the Steam Deck is it can be like turned on for any game. So some games have it like FSR built into their actual like settings of the game, where you would choose like high, medium, low graphics, fog quality, ambient occlusion, all of that stuff. And then it's like actually baked into the game, and it probably will perform the best. But I believe there's also a way you can like hold the start button for like a menu to appear.
Yeah, I'm looking at it right now.
Yeah, you can adjust like the FSR there. The Digital Foundry review said it's better if you use the in-game one, but if it's not there, the Steam Deck version is usually pretty good too. And that I thought was very intriguing.
There's a scaling filter. It says linear, nearest, integer, and FSR.
Yeah, so FSR should do the most in theory.
I'm going to turn it on now live on the podcast with Elden Ring running.
Steam Deck explodes. Does it look any better? It's so hard to tell this stuff sometimes. I mean, I reviewed this little device for our website called the M Classic before, which is a dongle that plugs into the Switch, so that it like upscales your graphics before they hit your TV kind of through the HDMI. And it was really hard to tell the difference when it didn't have screenshots of the same games side by side that I'd taken, because just you're looking at really fine edges, and especially when there's movement happening on screen, it's very hard to tell with some of these upscaling things. I mean, so on a small screen like that, I'm assuming it's gonna be very difficult.
In the context of like this specifically, because this is not me, like I'm not a super technical guy when it comes to this stuff. What would FSR give me in a game like Elden Ring that's running on the Steam Deck?
It should allow you to play the game on lower settings, but still get it to like render at like the highest resolution of the screen or something. Like it should just, by turning it on, should give you crispier graphics, and like less slowdowns or less intensity. Like the game should just run better. Crispier. It should run better and look better. Yeah. It's more for, I think why it's useful on this, it's more for like low end computers. So like, oh, you have a computer that can't play games at 4K, but you have a 4K screen. Well, now you can like sort of fake this with FSR to sort of get a somewhat 4K type of look. And I think it will help with the Steam Deck over the next 2 years, I guess, kind of what we were talking about earlier with the chip issues. But it's like, if the games become underpowered, ideally something like FSR could help them still look better on a lower screen while they're running at lower specs, like a medium level. Or
I'll have to mess around with it. Like
I think it's an interesting thing.
The max resolution, that's another thing that I should probably mention, just in case it doesn't come up as we close this out in a bit. Like the max resolution, I believe, for games is 1280 by 800 on the Steam Deck, and if you plug it in via USB-C like AV adapter, it still outputs at that resolution to whatever device you're plugging it into. Like the menu will
massive
scale
black bars around everything.
Yeah, the menu will scale, but the resolution will not. Now that's something that Valve says is going to change, but that's another thing to note. Like if you think you're going to use this like the Switch, which I thought when I got one, I thought I could use it like the Switch. Like if I wanted to play Elden Ring on a TV, I could just plug it in and play it. That's not the case currently. Also, interestingly, it was working with Genki's covert Switch dock initially. I plugged it in and it just like worked right away.
Which was essentially a USB-C docking station of some kind, right? Yeah.
It's just a USB-C dock. But the second day, woke up the next day, plugged it in, could not get it to work. Still cannot get it to work. Have no idea what changed. Don't know what happened. On the plus side, it also works with Apple's AV adapter. Like you can just plug in the non-powered Apple AV adapter, which Valve says shouldn't work. Like it says that you need powered adapters for it to work. But it does somehow. I don't know why or how.
Interesting. I'm assuming because of this like limitation that we're us and all the other reviewers are discovering of this like being locked to 1280 by 800 pixels no matter where you are or what you're porting to. I'm assuming that whatever Valve dock comes out is going to have some sort of like proprietary chip in it to help like upscale that, or would it be an upscale or just resizing it? I guess
it might. Sure. I don't know.
Yeah.
The dock's not out yet. It was delayed. I don't even think there's a release date yet.
I don't think so either.
For it. So who knows? Not sure.
I guess I got a couple of other questions here, but I'm going to skip the joke ones. Button layout. So next to like PS5, PS4, Xbox One, Xbox 360, Wii U, and Switch, where does it rank in terms of just like comfort, holding it? I mean, I think I want to start with the Wii U gamepad as like a point of comparison. Does it feel like a Wii U gamepad more than a Switch, or does it feel more like a Switch than a Wii U gamepad?
So it's really comfortable because it has like these grips on the side of it. You can kind of see them for people watching on YouTube.
Is it like kind of rubberized?
They're not rubberized. It feels like the Switch Pro controller, if you want to like
a bit of a texture to
logic. There's no texture to it, but there's these buttons built into the actual bottom part of it. They're kind of like paddles. Like when I talk about Halo Infinite and like using paddles to switch weapons and reload on the Xbox Elite Pro controller, it's kind of like that. I wish those weren't there personally because I don't think they're necessary, and they're kind of hard to press. They're pretty stiff buttons. But on the front, you have like the two joysticks. They're relatively easy to reach and they're comfortable. I guess I'm a little surprised how the fact that they're parallel doesn't bother me. Like usually parallel joysticks where they're not like offset like the Xbox controller, I hate that. They're fine. This the D-pad in the top right corner, top left corner is pretty difficult to reach.
Yeah, I can see that. That's really far away.
It's kind of painful. The touch panels, which you can kind of replicate the mouse when you're in desktop mode, and you can use to control the camera in some games. And I think you can also use them if you're customizing the control scheme for a game that's maybe not optimized for the Steam Deck. You can come up with your own control scheme to replace like mouse and keyboard controls. They feel surprisingly good. But what I would say is the haptics they're not great. It feels like some Fisher-Price ass haptics. Like it's okay, but the Switch is like, for example, the Switch's 3D rumble's way better. The way your phone vibrates even feels way better for the most part.
I was hoping with the PlayStation 5 controller, like adopting a high definition rumble as well, that it would just become
nowhere near
standard, moving more forward, but I guess not. Although this was likely in development at the same time as the PlayStation 5, maybe.
Probably. But generally speaking, to like truly answer your question, it's comfortable minus the weight, and I find it easier to use for long gaming sessions than the Switch.
Oh, we find it easier to use for long gaming sessions than the Switch.
And without the weight being a consideration, like as long as I have it like sitting on
the hand. The Switch is super comfortable in the hand. Kind of cramped. Fair enough. Yeah, I guess I mean, do we still want to talk about Elden Ring? I have my last question here, just be like, oh, what's the best game to play on it? Just to like feed into that. But we've ran really long.
Yeah, we can talk about it for a little bit. Yeah, like for me, Elden Ring was the obvious go-to because it's like the trendy game that everybody's talking about right now. I didn't think I'd like it as much as I do. I'm not a play games to get frustrated. I love difficult games kind of guy. Like that's not me. unless it's Halo Infinite. I love to play that and just hate my life. But I'm surprised at how much fun I've had with Elden Ring. There's this thing to it where like you don't have to do stuff if you don't want to, for the most part. Like if you don't want to fight bosses, you can avoid a lot of them. If you don't want to go into these super high end like areas, you don't have to. You can kind of just like walk around and explore and discover stuff. And in a way, it reminds me a lot of Breath of the Wild. That same like level of exploration, that same like feeling that you're like truly on an adventure. Like it's just you, your sword, and you're like discovering stuff. It feels like that, and there's like some quality of life changes with like fast travel, and there's like a mount in it, and I don't want to get into a lot of that because I haven't really played the other From Software games like Demon Souls, Dark Souls 3, Bloodborne, that kind of thing. I've dabbled with them and ultimately came to the conclusion, but they're not for me. But what I would say is like Elden Ring stuck. Like I'm glad that getting the Steam Deck and it being the like trendy game of the moment made me give it a shot, because I've had probably more fun with it than I've had with like, at least in 2022, like any other game so far. Probably like in the last 6 months, even looking back into 2021.
Wait, well, I think if you go back 6 months, you're cutting out Halo. Are you saying Elden Ring is ranking above Halo for you? Because that's
no,
that's not a Pat thing.
The Master Chief is my Lord and Savior and my boyfriend,
your spirit animal.
Yeah, I will never. I had a great time with Halo, and especially multiplayer. Like I have like 8 days or something logged in that. I'm taking a break from it for a bit until the next update comes out. But I would like, if I had on the spot, I would say that like it's probably the most fun I've had with a game in the last 6 months, next to Halo Infinite.
I can't talk to you about this anymore. It's making me want to get it, but I just don't have the time to like commit to Elden Ring. Maybe in the summertime, or
it's a time investment.
Just take a week, maybe.
Especially if you don't like know the From Software games. Like a lot of my time with the game has been spent just like figuring stuff out, figuring out the mechanics, watching YouTube tutorials. Like it's not. I would say it's like an easier game to get into, but it's not pick up and play. Like if you just pick this up and try to play it for a couple hours, you're probably gonna walk away frustrated.
That's classic me. Yeah, the only like kind of Soulsborne game I've played is never even a From Software one. I actually, it's a lie. I like attempted Dark Souls 1, but like a couple hours, walked away frustrated. But the only one I ever played like quite a bit was the Jedi Fallen Order. But even then, I didn't play it on a very hard difficulty. I liked it though, but I'm also kind of a big Star Wars fan, so that kind of carried me through a lot of it as well. But yeah, I don't know, the mystique of this world. I don't know. Also, it's so like such a dumb thing to say, but the name is so good. Why is it so catchy and so satisfying to say Elden Ring? Like, I want the Elden Ring. I don't know why I want to keep saying that. It's just so satisfying. Originally, I hated it because it felt like a ripoff of Lord of the Rings, but now that it's become such like a big like zeitgeisty force in the news lately, I'm just like all about it. Like, that is such a good name. Like, they have to build a series off of Elden Ring like they did Dark Souls, because that is a catchy name.
Like I do think that like I'm gonna drop off it like I do with every game. Like I'll hit a wall at some point, something new will come out, and I'll move on to that. But I'm genuinely shocked that I've had fun with it. Like if you go back through my Twitter history, like I was just talking mad shit about this game and saying like I don't understand the appeal of From Software games, because to an extent I don't. I would say after playing this, I get it a little bit more now. Like the exploration, the moving forward slowly, the like deciding like should you go into this place or should you go to the save point and have all of your enemies respawn, or should you go spend your souls and make the safe decision and level up or buy new armor or whatever. I'm kind of getting why people like those other games now. I'm not going to go back and play them. Like I still think they're too difficult.
Yeah.
But yeah, for some reason this one's clicked with me.
Fair enough. I guess just since we've sort of rejigged the SyrupCast. We've rejigged the SyrupCast. I don't know why I can't speak today. A little bit lately, but I guess this is sort of our hottest games of the week category equivalent now. But I saw this game the other day, and I don't remember what it's called. It's like Frontier Development or something, but it looks like a city building game, but in like kind of like medieval fantasy style. Cool. So you're like building like potion shops and stuff like that. I was like really excited about that coming out, but it's not for a while. It's like just the first teaser trailer.
What's it coming out
give me
for?
1 second. PC, I believe. I sent it to my
PC,
friend so I can pull up that link.
Yeah, that's another thing with Elden Ring is like the setting is
Farthest
cool.
Frontier is what it's called.
Farthest Frontier, okay. If you have any interest in like medieval or like fantasy stuff, it's like
the setting seems really good.
It's a really cool dark world that's fun to explore. Like, and again, I keep saying this, but like I didn't expect to like it at all. I like dreaded. I remember Friday night when I got the Steam Deck on Friday. I was like debating whether or not I should get it because I was like, I'm gonna hate this game. I know that these are games I'm buying for testing and review purposes, and it's not out of my own pocket. Like our company's gonna pay for them, but I was still like, I don't want to get this game because I know I'm gonna hate it, and I'm shocked that I like it. Like it's in a sense like mind blowing to me.
Fair enough. Yeah, I don't have any other questions really. Do you have any like final Steam Deck thoughts you want to impart on us? I heard it comes with a case. Is the case nice actually?
Yeah, nice case. I'll grab it. I have it. I'll grab it real quick.
Cool.
Here it is. Yeah,
it kind of looks big. Like the case that comes with GoPro.
It's a big, massive case, right? But I mean, it's cool that it comes with one because like I would be buying
AirPods
one,
Max
probably. Yeah, came with like a weird skin that doesn't even work.
Yeah, we can see it in the background of your shot.
Comes with a case. There it is. There's the AirPods Max case. Ooh, look at that. Ooh, Max.
Yeah. Put that in your bag.
Comes with a case. Great. I think that's a super smart move by Valve. I wish it came with a screen protector of some sort. It doesn't. Probably going to buy one after I finish the reviews and we do a video about it and I take pictures. But yeah.
Cool. All right. I guess when's this going up? Friday? Or do you think we'll get up sooner? After
my
Wednesday
review
is really no this podcast.
This podcast Friday. I think Friday.
Cool. When's the review going up though? Actually, that's a good question too. Do you have any ideas?
So 2 weeks? I'm hoping to start it this week. Will I get it done? I do not know. Depends on a variety of other factors. And there are some things like obviously we talked about the scaling stuff. Like I got to play around with and test a little bit. Mm-hmm. I am going to be reviewing it more from the perspective of someone who like plays console games and isn't into like tinkering with their titles. They just want to like boot something up and play it. But I do also want to have like some semblance of knowledge about and information about it, about some of the more technical aspects of the device in there, because I know that that's something that people are interested in, and particularly our readers will be interested in too.
Yeah, it's a unique product. It's like a unique product in a unique category, or a hybrid category. So yeah, it's not an easy review to do. But I was asking mainly because I've got these earbuds. Ooh. And got a little unboxing.
What are they called?
Sennheiser IE600s. Yeah, no one can probably see that at all. Sennheiser IE600s. They're $1,000 wired earbud headphones. And they sound pretty great, but I don't know if you would ever want to buy them. So I don't know what to say about them, but I'm hoping to do a video about them. They're pretty cool. I love them, but yeah, that's that. And I also have a video going up likely the same day as this on our channel on YouTube about portrait mode and Samsung Galaxy S22 Ultra's portrait mode, which is surprisingly very good. Nice. Sometimes like it will cut out hair to an extent that I didn't believe was even possible with software. And sometimes it will still fail, but it's an interesting video nonetheless.
That's cool.
And that one's going up soon. Yeah.
Cool. So I'll do our little closing, wrap it up. You can find me at Twitter at Patrick_Rourke, and of course on MobileSyrup.com. Bennett, where can people find you?
You can find me anywhere at the BradFad, on MobileSyrup.com, where all my written stuff is posted, and on MobileSyrup's YouTube channel, where most of the videos that I work on go as well.
And as always, you can find all of our content on MobileSyrup, and also follow us on Twitter and Instagram at MobileSyrup. Thanks for listening.
Peace.